everyone talking about the top 10 best amber fragrances I've ever tried. Finally got to the point where I had 10 on my kind of best of amber draft, because I only add to it when I really feel like there's something that belongs in a best of category. So not in any particular order. And overall, almost everything on here is pretty unisex, I would say, but I'll mention if anything isn't. Yeah, jumping in. Tom Ford, Amber Absolute. The notes in this are amber, incense, vanilla, olibanum, which is frankincense, labdanum, and woods. This is creamy with a rich vanilla that's tempered really well by the woods and kind of smoky incense side, so it doesn't go too far in any one direction. Smells very high quality, very like decadent, but not stuffy, because sometimes stuff, at least to me, that smells too like classy and decadent and rich can also then smell stuffy or just kind of like, yeah. But to me, this is still very mass pleasing, and I could picture this getting a lot of compliments. Pretty unisex, and I think this would also be one that could come across as sexy in the right context without smelling too try-hard. Not cheap. Some of the stuff on this list is going to be very expensive, but there are also that are much more affordable. This one is $350 plus, probably more for a 50 milliliter. Has great longevity and projection. Next up, Ohira by Stephane Humbert Lucas, 777. The notes in this are fossilized amber, basically. That's what the scent is kind of built around. This is warm, like ancient, but not dated, just this like, yeah, like kind of how amber feels like that ancient. I mean, fossilized amber, yeah, has to be kind of ancient. Slightly smoky, slightly salty, resinous amber. That fossilized amber vibe definitely comes through, despite, obviously, I don't know what that would really smell like in the wild, but what we might picture that being. Really well done. Sophisticated in like a subtle, confident way. Leans mature, but not dated at all. And I wouldn't say this is necessarily mass pleasing, but if you like slightly smoky labdanum type of amber fragrances, I think this is fantastic for that category, and I like that category. So great longevity and good projection. Unisex, $485 for a 100 milliliter. Next up, Orca by House of Matriarch. This has notes of, according to Fragrantica, spices, amber, benzoin, honey, precious woods, choya, loban, ambergris, and labdanum. Love this. As you can see, this is full bottle worthy for me. So this is obviously not a bottle. This is a 10 milliliter, but this is one that I rarely, if ever, wear. I just mainly like to have it to smell. And I wanted to have like a good ambergris scent in my collection. And this is my favorite that I've ever tried of the ambergris kind of category. I'm not an ambergris fan overall. I don't dislike it, but it just isn't really my thing. But the way it's done here with the labdanum and the ambre side emphasized, really nice, warm, resinous amber, slinking, slightly leathery labdanum, vivid ambergris, and this kind of like touch of sweetness, maybe with honey, but not enough to get syrupy or cloying. Cool, soft edge of kind of frankincense-like smoke, soft vanilla like benzoin. Just an excellent ambergris scent. I also like that this is a bit lighter than the typical resinous amber scents, because some of those are just, including a lot on this list, are very like heavy and dense, which I know a lot of people want that out of a scent with like beast mode and massive, but sometimes I want something that's a bit lighter, but I still am in the mood for something ambery, so nice to have an option. Yeah, and this might be a bit biased of me because orcas are one of my favorite animals, and also orcas are technically in the dolphin family, not whales, so the ambergris part doesn't actually connect to that, but it's fun to pretend. And this contains ambergris that is 100% natural, I guess, yeah, like not fake synthetic, but like real ambergris aged over 100 years. So I always think it's kind of cool that like, whoa, this was from a whale in the 1800s or whatever. Yeah, but yeah, this is so pricey. That's why I got a 10 mil, $660 for a 50 milliliter. And even then I waited till they had a 50% off sale to even get the 10 milliliter, because wow, but it is really good, and I'm glad that I have that one. Pretty good longevity, moderate projection, and I would say unisex. Next up, Le Lion by Chanel. As you can see, also full bottle worthy for me. Amber, kind of done like leathery amber, labdanum, patchouli, vanilla, bergamot, and lemon. I do not like patchouli normally, but it just kind of adds a smokiness here. It comes out more in the base, at which point I don't like it as much, but I love the opening and the mid. It took some getting used to. Like, it's very challenging. Has some dark side that really dominates, and it can feel really strong and almost kind of like animalic. As I mentioned in my review of this, when I first smelled this, I thought it smelled like a combination of piss and incense, and I can still sort of see how I thought that, but it really grew on me, and I love it. Yeah, it almost reminds me as it progresses like a cigar burning in the sunset in the tropics, but somehow in an ambery way. But yeah, I would compare this a bit to like Shalimar for those who have tried that, like the classic original one. Yeah, I really like this. It's like cozy and comforting, but it's something, yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's also pretty impressive. This only came out as of recording this like within the last 5 years, because it smells like this would have been like a classic vintage. But yeah, $275 for a 75 milliliter, $425 for a 200 milliliter, good longevity and projection, and I would say pretty unisex. Next up, Velvet Amber Sun by Dolce & Gabbana. The notes in this are ylang ylang, vanilla, labdanum, bergamot, sandalwood, smoke, coriander, pepper, amberwood, olibanum, patchouli, oud, benzoin, cinnamon, myrrh, apopanax, and tonka bean. This smells way more expensive than the average Dolce & Gabbana, which it is. So that this is from their like high-end line. But sometimes even their high-end line ones fall really flat to me and just smell like eh. But this is really, really good. Rich, balsamic, resinous, slightly smoky and spicy, and of course you got the velvety amber. Nice cold weather scent for fans of stuff like some the earlier ones I mentioned would be on here would be like Amber Absolute by Tom Ford and Le Lion by Chanel. If you've tried either one of those, I think you would like this. I would wish it didn't have patchouli in it, but even with that, I think it still works pretty well here, and I think it's a nice scent overall. Unisex, leaning maybe slightly masculine to some, $400 plus for a 100 milliliter, moderate to good longevity and projection. I promise we're getting to some of the more affordable ones now. Solstice Scents Conjure. The notes in this are sweet vanilla, golden amber, labdanum, warm cedar, cauldron smoke, allspice, sandalwood, Moroccan and Bulgarian rose, Gaiac wood, and oud. So I do not like rose and oud scents at all. I don't like rose and I don't like oud, but I really don't like them together either. But this isn't like that at all. Those are very... This is more about the amber and kind of smoky labdanum incense vibes to me. Very like refined, classy, warm spice and woods and slight smoky edge. Smells super high quality, very like rich, but not too over the top thick or syrupy. Just really well done, and smells more like a high-end niche fragrance than the typical indie, because this is like a smaller indie fragrance house. I would say pretty unisex, moderate to good longevity, moderate projection. You can get a 5 milliliter for about $20, which might sound a lot for a 5 milliliter. But first of all, it always is more when you're buying a small amount at a time. And second, this one's really like a perfume oil, so it's very condensed, so a little goes a long way. Next up, Ambre DeMer by DeMer Parfum. The notes in this are amber, blood orange, cinnamon, cacao, liquor, coffee, orris, oud, Peru balsam, and linen. This is so good. Incredibly well blended, very high quality, and very appealing to smell. The notes make it look like it would be pretty intense, like coffee, oud, you know, all this like liquor kind of stuff, but it's so wearable and it's so rich at the same time. Really nice cinnamon that doesn't get too sharp and also doesn't get candy-ish. Kind of like cinnamon roll style almost. The blood orange adds like a nice nuance here and doesn't go too bitter or too like, it's just kind of more background to me. The orris is really nice, so smooth and works really well with the amber. There's almost like a maple-like quality to aspects of it, but again, not in an overly syrupy sweet way. Also like a toasted, slightly smoky quality. Like a golden toasted amber is what this scent smells like to me. Very high quality. Unisex, leaning slightly masculine, I would say, and has good longevity and projection. They only make ones in very limited batches, so it may be hard to even get a sample of that, but you can contact them, just look up their Etsy shop or whatever, and see if they have it. Next up, Seattle Chocolate by Olympic Orchids. Notes in this are dark cacao, black bourbon vanilla, sweet poplar bud, evergreen wood, oak moss, gourmand musk, whatever that is, silver fir, and fir balsam absolute. This is deeply resinous amber, almost like ambergris level, like the way the ambergris is in Orca by House of Matriarch, which I mentioned earlier, and kind of like White Whale by Mask Milano. There's also coniferous trees and rich, actually pretty subtle, well-blended chocolate. Really phenomenally done, and if you like super resinous amber, this is a must try, I would say. It's not a gourmand style scent with the chocolate. It's really, the chocolate's more of a supporting role to me here, and it's definitely not, yeah, like, oh, so even though chocolate's in the name, you'd think it would be such a chocolatey scent, but it's not. Moderate to good longevity and projection. 120 for a 100 milliliter, which is a great deal for the quality of that one, and yeah, and that's unisex. Next up, Valour by Robert Graham. This one you can get for only about $70 for a 100 milliliter on FragranceNet, and this one is more masculine leaning, way better than I expected it to be. This has notes of amber, sage, and coffee. So if you're looking for a really strong coffee scent, that's not going to be this. But I think it's actually really nice how it's like amber with some kind of warm spice, very well blended, much higher quality than I would usually see at this price range, with the coffee just adding some nuance. Suave, smooth, kind of like timeless masculine amber. very classy but not stuffy, and I think it could work for someone of any age, really. Just definitely a standout in the masculine amber category with moderate to good longevity and projection. And last, Amber Oil by Nemat. This is a great like second skin type of scent, which means that it's supposed to smell like you, but better sort of, and be like sort of on the subtle side and like not smell too much like you're wearing a fragrance, and just kind of like you smell good and fresh and clean, but with an ambery style. The note is basically just amber here. Very versatile. This could be worn year round, any weather, formal, casual, day, night, like just a dumb reach, so to speak. I thought it was going to be like really cloying and ambery, but it's actually not. So this is nice if you just want something that's like a little bit more of a laid back and not like a really thick, dense amber. Just good for like smelling nice when you're not in the mood for any one particular type of scent and you still want to put something on. Unisex, leaning feminine, great price too. You can get a 10 milliliter for less than 20 bucks. And yeah, that's only a 10 milliliter, which is like this size, but this one, it comes in like a roll on, and it's just like a really nice to have around and nice to get some kind of size, at least for pretty cheap. Moderate to good longevity, projections on the lower end for that one. And yeah, for some of these, I'll link in the description where you can get a sample or bottle. For other ones, either way, I'll mention the names of all of them in case you want to look some of them up. And yeah, if you have a favorite amber scent that I did not mention, let me know.